Imagine meeting a girl by accident. She tells you her name and seems to know you, but you can't remember who she was. Soon after that, various disturbing deaths happen around you, and not only does it affect random people, it also targets the people you know. So now, you have to find a way to stop it, and the clue all point towards the strange girl you met. That is the premise of Gore Screaming Show. Developed by Black Cyc and originally released back in 2006 before receiving an English translation in November 2022, Gore Screaming Show follows the story of Jinno Kyoji, who came back to his hometown and met a weird girl by accident. However, it isn't long before everything starts to go wrong. Mysterious and gruesome death starts appearing, and all of it seems to be connected to the strange girl he just met. Just a reminder, this is a visual novel game with several different endings. Some of them are gruesome and grotesque, so if you're planning on playing this, just remember to not eat anything beforehand. The game begins with Kyoji pedaling his bike to school. He had been away for 3 years but recently returned to his hometown because his parents moved to America for work. They wanted him to go with them, but Kyoji declined and decided to stay in Japan. As he pedaled his bike, he passed by stores and shops he remembered visiting as a child. This makes him stop and reminisce about his childhood. Much to his delight, the town of Kurihito hasn't changed much in 3 years. As he is deep in nostalgia, he glanced at his watch and realized he's running late on his first day of school. Kyoji quickly pedaled his bike, but unexpectedly, a girl suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This caused him to hit the brakes immediately, but it's too late. He crashed into her. Or so he thought. When he turns around, there's no one there. Even stranger, the road to his school has vanished and he finds himself on a mountain. The shops and road have disappeared, and in their place, all he can see is a narrow, slightly winding trail leading into the forest. Kyoji is confused by his situation. How did he end up here? Where's the girl that he almost hit? Has he gone insane? Did he imagine her? As he wonders about this, he hears the school bell ringing in the distance. Kyoji knows he's late for class, but as if fate decides to play a cruel joke on him, his bike suddenly gets a flat tire. With no other choice, Kyoji picks up his bike and runs to school. Luckily, the place where he is, called Mount Nishimori, is just behind the school. It doesn't take long for him to arrive, and after a brief scolding from the teacher, Mr. Ando, we are introduced to the 3 female lead of this visual novel. The first one is Kazuyagi Akane, Kyoji's childhood friend who used to be tomboyish but has grown into a fine young lady. The second is Namiki Aoi, a quiet and gloomy girl who was in the same class as Akane and Kyoji in elementary school. Finally, there's Misono Kiika, a half-Japanese, half-British girl who was in the same class as Kyoji at his previous school but unexpectedly transferred away 6 months ago before Kyoji moved back to his hometown. After Kyoji introduced himself to the class, we are presented with 3 dialogue options that determine which route we'll follow. Let's briefly discuss this. Gore Screaming Show is a long game. Each route takes around 6 to 7 hours. I'm not kidding. The pacing is slow. Thankfully, the story is largely the same across all 3 characters, with the only difference being that each route explores the character's personal life, story, and so on. There are actually 5 routes available, but the last 2 are unlocked only after completing the first 3. You can start with any of the 3 characters in any order, but for this video, we'll go with Akane first. With that out of the way, as soon as we pick the first dialogue option, Kyoji instantly reminisces about his childhood with Akane. And it's safe to say it's not a pleasant memory. It's revealed here that they were once very close and inseparable. Akane's tomboyish nature made it easy for him to befriend her. However, something happened during their childhood that forced him to distance himself from her, as he felt guilty about that incident. Remember this part as it will come up again later in this video. After classes ends, Kyoji finds himself alone because nobody approached him. He finds this strange since he knows some of the people here. Just as he's about to lose hope of talking to anyone, Akane approached him and struck up a conversation. She asked about his parents and Kyoji replied that they're in America. Akane then asked if his parents aren't afraid of terrorist attack. Wait, what? When was this visual novel made again? ...2006. Oh, okay. I had to double check because... oh boy, that's a wild thing to say. Kyoji then asks about her parents, which make the conversation a bit awkward for her. Luckily, Shinta joins the conversation, giving Akane a chance to excuse herself. After Akane leaves, Shinta remarks that he felt Kyoji has changed and seems more mature. Kyoji denies it and insists that he's still the same. The conversation then shifts to their town and Kyoji expressed gratitude that the place hasn't changed much because it's still as peaceful as ever. Shinta frowns at his statement, and here we learn the first piece of mystery surrounding the town of Kurohito. According to Shinta, 2 girls went missing in the last 2 weeks. Kyoji argues that it could have been a simple case of kidnapping, but Shinta disagrees. The circumstances of their disappearance are too strange, and what's even weirder is that the media didn't cover these incidents. Just as Shinta is about to go into more detail, he suddenly looks annoyed. When Kyoji asks what's wrong, Shinta tells him that Sarashima is staring at them. Kyoji then glances at him, and here we are introduced to Sarashima Fumiya, the biggest asshole of this game. Seriously, this game loved this guy. So much so that in every bad ending, he's the one who does something terrible to the girls Kyoji falls in love with. Anyway, Shinta noticed that Sarashima is already giving Kyoji a nasty look, and he's concerned that something might happen to him. Of course, something definitely does happen, but for now, the two only exchange glances. After that conversation, things proceed normally until break time when Kyoji sees Akane carrying a lot of material for their next lesson. Sarashima is also there and he tries to flirt with Akane by offering to carry the items she's holding. Akane is visibly uncomfortable by this but tries to play it cool and rejects his offer. When she notices Kyoji, she freezes, likely because she doesn't want him to get the wrong idea about her and Sarashima. Noticing Akane's change in behavior around Kyoji, Sarashima asks if she knows him. When Akane answers reluctantly, Sarashima gives Kyoji a mocking smile and leaves, carrying the item Akane was holding. The rest of the day passes normally, but when it's time to go home, something happens. Remember that foreshadowing about Sarashima doing something to Kyoji? Well, it happens. While on his way to get his bike, which he parked behind the school, Kyoji overhears Sarashima and his gang talking about Akane and what he plans to do to her. Remember when I mentioned that something happened between Akane and Kyoji long ago? Well, here we get a quick flashback of Kyoji and Akane doing something that is not supposed to be doing when they were kids. There's more to that story, but we'll let the mystery unravel as we progress. Anyway, Kyoji doesn't take this well. I mean, why would he? After the incident, he and Akane become strangers, and it left them both traumatized. Kyoji tried to forget about it, but now this jerk wants to bring that trauma back? That doesn't sit well with him. So Kyoji confronts them. A fight breaks out and he's badly beaten by Sarashima and his gang. Though he did not go down without a fight, Kyoji managed to land a few punches before Sarashima's gang overpowered him. As he's about to lose consciousness, he hears Akane's voice shouting for the teacher. This caused Sarashima and his gang to flee. Kyoji is later brought to the school infirmary where Akane and Aoi are with him. Akane scolds him for being reckless and asks why he picked the fight with Sarashima, but Kyoji stayed silent, which angers her further, escalating into an argument between them. After this, we get a dialogue option to advance Kyoji's relationship with Akane. After treating his wound, Akane and Kyoji walk home together, reminiscing about their past along the way. Just as they reach Akane's home, they hear a voice calling out to them. The voice belongs to Saitama Yamiko, Kyoji's legal guardian and older cousin. Her real name is Yumekawa Himeko, but she dislikes it because it sounds like something from a manga. If you want to know how much she hates that name, just look at this scene where Akane accidentally calls her by her real name.
Yamiko-san? ペンネームって？私ね、今オカルト雑誌でライターをやってるのよ。埼玉ヤミコってペンネームでね。埼玉ヤミコ？何その変な名前。夢川姫子じゃどうしてダメなの？あかねちゃん。お姉さん、その名前嫌いだな。すっごく嫌いだな。どのくらい嫌いかっていうとね、2週間お風呂に入っていない上に溝に落っこちて汚くて、その上痴漢なんかしちゃうようなド最低男と同じくらい嫌いなんだ。
She described hating her name as much as she hates a scumbag of a man who hasn't bathed in 2 weeks. Oddly specific, but okay. Yamiko works as a journalist for an occult magazine called Abrased, but before that, she was employed at a major publishing company specializing in scandals. Apparently, this company is so well respected that everyone fears having their name associated with it. Anyway, after reminding Akane to call her by her new name, Yamiko and Kyoji return home. That night, Yamiko asks Kyoji about what happened at school and how he ended up in a fight. Kyoji initially wants to stay quiet, but since Sarashima decided to be a jerk and tell his parent, he had no choice but to explain. Of course, Yamiko believed Kyoji wouldn't do something like this without a reason and assured him that tomorrow she'll settle things with the school. She then shifts the conversation to how Kyoji was bad at playing the guitar, comparing him to her childhood friend. This friend will appear later and he is an important character in this game. The next day when Kyoji arrives at school, his classmates surrounds him and tells him how glad they are that Sarashima was beaten up. It turns out they overheard Sarashima talking about wanting to harm Kyoji. Kyoji also learned that his classmate didn't approach him initially because they felt he had changed over the past 3 years. But when he beat up the guy everyone hated, they realized he's still the same trouble-loving guy. After catching up with his classmate, Kyoji asked Shinta about the missing person case since he didn't finish his story last time. As usual, before he could even explain it, someone interrupted them. This time, it's a trio of girls from another class. The one in the middle with the glasses is Ichinose Marina, the skinny one is Nikaido Mami, and the tall one is Mitsuhashi Mai. These girls are Sarashima's fan and they're not happy that Kyoji beat up their idol. Kyoji tries to explain that Sarashima started it, but Marina cuts him off and accuses him of being jealous of Sarashima's wealth and good look. Akane tried to defend Kyoji, but the girls tell her to shut up and accuse her of having feelings for Kyoji since she's trying so hard to defend him. As all of this were going on, an announcement was suddenly heard, asking Kyoji to go to the principal's office. Accompanying him is Yamiko, who appears wearing a suit, which shocked Kyoji since he's so used to seeing her in casual clothes. What's even more shocking is that Yamiko introduced herself using her real name. Remember, Yamiko hates her name, so for her to use it, this must be serious. When they arrive at the principal's office, Sarashima's parents are already there, and safe to say, it's not a pleasant conversation. It's a one-sided argument. The principal is no help in mediating and often blamed Kyoji for the incident. I mean, what do you expect? Once a bootlicker, always a bootlicker. That shoe must have tasted really good. Jokes aside, despite all the accusations thrown at Kyoji, Yamiko remains completely calm, occasionally throwing in a few verbal jabs but staying composed. However, Sarashima's parents went silent when Yamiko hands them a business card. You see, they had threatened to sue Kyoji and told Yamiko to talk to their lawyer, but as soon as Sarashima's father sees the card, his face turned pale and he immediately tells his wife to stop provoking her. It turns out the card that Yamiko handed them was from her old workplace. Remember when I mentioned that Yamiko's old company was notorious for exposing scandals? So much so that everyone feared its report? Yeah, it's safe to say Sarashima's parents might have some skeleton in their closets. Anyway, after that ordeal, the rest of the day goes normally for Kyoji until it's time to go home where Akane joins him. Along the way, Akane complains about Mr. Ando, their teacher, the trio of girls who harass her again, and Sarashima's group of friends. She talks about how she thinks Sarashima is a good person and that his friends are influencing him to do bad things. Girl, he literally called you a use item. Wake the fuck up. That night, while having dinner, Yamiko asks Kyoji if he can help her with some field work. Kyoji is reluctant at first, saying that he's busy, but after Yamiko reminds him that he owes her, he agrees to help. Little does he know, this decision will be the catalyst for many unfortunate events. After that, the scene cuts to a random woman named Yaiko who had just gotten off work and is on her way home. As she walks through the familiar neighborhood, she suddenly feels uneasy. The streets are unusually quiet. She doesn't notice it at first since her mind is preoccupied with what happened at her workplace, but after slowing down and observing her surroundings, she finally realizes something is wrong. Fear grips her and she rushes to get home. But just as she's about to reach her house, someone greets her. No, something is the appropriate description here. Whatever it is, it's not human. Appearing right in front of her, the creature has bulging eyes and sharp teeth. Strangely, it can talk like a normal person. Yaiko screams in horror when she sees it, and the screen fades to black. The next morning, Akane comes to Kyoji's home to deliver a handout from the teacher. For some reason, she forgot to give it to him yesterday. I don't know how that's possible, but hey, Akane might have purposely forgotten it just to have an excuse to visit his home. She then bumps into Yamiko as she enters the apartment, and the two have a pleasant chat about Kyoji's embarrassing childhood. The rest of the day goes somewhat normal. The class is given a self-study session since all the teachers are in a meeting. Apparently, the random woman we saw briefly last night was the sister of a student from the next class. Like the previous case, she disappeared without a trace. As the day progressed, the classroom remained restless, with an air of unease hanging over the school. Everything feels off. In the end, not a single teacher comes to teach, and the day ends with the homeroom teacher reminding them to go home in pairs for safety. Since their homes are close, Akane decides to walk home with Kyoji. As they leave the school gate, Kyoji is surprised to find Yamiko waiting for him. Yamiko gave him a puzzled look as she had already told him that she needed his help with field research. She invites Akane to join them and they all heads up the mountain trail behind the school. Along the way, Akane asks what Yamiko needs help with. Yamiko explains that she's working on a story about a famous urban legend in their hometown, the man-eating demon and the Pillar of Light. Basically, this legend is about a man-eating demon that exists in Kurehito during the 13th century. After Yamiko shares the story of the urban legend, she asks Kyoji and Akane to look around and let her know if they find anything strange. Kyoji is reluctant at first, but after some persuasion from Yamiko, he agrees and heads in a different direction. The two walks deeper into the forest where Akane spots a brick-like structure in the distance. It turns out to be a sealed old well. Despite Akane's objection, Kyoji decides to open it. He is halfway through when a voice calls out to him. Turning around, they see a little girl wearing a dark purple dress. Her lavender hair is adorned with red ribbons and she has large, striking red eyes. This girl is Yuka. When Kyoji sees her, he immediately asks if they've met before, but Yuka stays silent and smiles at him. Akane tries asking her name, but Yuka suddenly becomes hostile towards her. This left Akane surprised and disturbed. She felt as if Yuka knows what she's hiding. This will be a common thing in every route. For some reason, Yuka had this uncanny ability to tell the person's deepest, darkest secret. Yuka continues on, but Kyoji decides enough is enough. He pulls Akane away and they leave the area. They meet up with Yamiko and tell her what they found, including the encounter with Yuka. With nothing left to do, they all head home. That night, while Kyoji is in his room, he suddenly recalls his encounter with Yuka and things get weird. For some reason, while thinking about her, Kyoji feels aroused. Yeah, I'll stop there. The next morning, trouble arises. Sadashima returns with a cast on his arm. The injury he sustained wasn't even that serious to begin with. If anything, Kyoji was the one who was badly beaten, but Sadashima, being the prick he is, decided to show up with the cast to gain everyone's sympathy. Thankfully, everyone sees through his act, except the homeroom teacher, Mr. Ando, who tries hard to justify Sadashima's action and blame Kyoji for what happened. Looks like we got another bootlicker here. At this point, Kyoji has had enough. The homeroom teacher clearly isn't on his side, so why should he play nice? Kyoji fights back by arguing with the teacher. This goes on for a while and even Akane steps in to stop the fight. But eventually the teacher has had enough and punished both Akane and Kyoji by making them stay after school to clean the classroom. After the lesson ends, well, things get even more troublesome. For starters, the three weirdos start harassing Akane, telling her it's her fault for what happened to Sadashima. Kyoji steps in to defend her, but this only makes things worse. And you know what's even worse? Akane feels relief when Sadashima tries to break up the fight. Imagine how Kyoji feels seeing that. It doesn't help that afterward, Kyoji sees Akane and Sadashima together. Sadashima pulls the classic, "Yeah, I know someone cares about you, but I care you even more. Man, get off your Still, Kyoji has to try. He wants to tell Akane what Sadashima really wants from her, but while he's thinking of a way to do so, Sadashima makes a move and asks her out to see a movie. Hearing that exchange, Kyoji panics. He's certain that Sadashima will definitely do something to Akane, so without thinking anything else, he decides to go all in and ask Akane out for a date. And thankfully, she said yes. The whole classroom takes it as a confession and declares them as a couple. Finally, they're dating. Horseface, on the other hand, can't handle the humiliation and leaves the classroom. But this won't be the last we see of him. A few days after the confession, Kyoji goes on a date with Akane as planned, and as expected, the date goes exceptionally well. They watch a movie, spend time at a cafe, typical couple stuff. Everything goes smoothly. That is until Kyoji heads home that evening. As he walks alone, he hears Yuka's voice laughing creepily. Kyoji looked around and spots her silhouette at the corner of a nearby alley. Something about her appearance makes him uneasy. He calls out for her to show herself, but she ignored him. Frustrated because she thought she was playing around, he approached the corner, only to freeze. There's no one there, just a small puppet lying on the ground that looks eerily like Yuka. Creeped out, he hurries home, but this is just the beginning of many weird things to come. The next day, during homeroom, a teacher divides the class into groups and assigns them to create a map. Kyoji's group consists of Akane, Aoi, Kiika, and Shinta, and their task is to map Mount Nishimori. Simple, right? Well, one student finds the assignment odd and asks the teacher about it, but instead of answering, the teacher snaps, banging his head on the desk. This freaks out the student and they hurriedly leave the classroom. Disturbed by this, Kyoji's group rushed out of the class. Arriving at Mount Nishimori, they waste no time and begin mapping the area. As they head towards the well, Akane shares her experience meeting Yuka. While they're talking, Aoi interrupts, pointing out a mansion hidden behind the trees. Curious, they decide to check it out. Peering through a window, they discover the mansion is occupied. They looked around a bit more before deciding to leave, but just as they're about to go, an old lady emerged from the house. The group apologizes for trespassing, but the old woman says it's fine and invites them for a drink. They hesitated at first, but she reassured them that it won't take long and that her sick daughter would enjoy their company. A dialogue choice popped out, and here we are given two choices. Now, this part is important because this is the first turning point of the game. One of these choices will lead to a bad ending, and let me tell you, you do not want the bad ending, especially in Akane's route. It's too disgusting. The best I can describe it is that it involves cheating with a bunch of guys. Still, I have an obligation to explain, so we're going through with it. After discussing with the whole group, Kyoji decided to accept the invitation, not wanting to hurt the old lady's feeling. Surprisingly, the mansion's interior is well kept, though Kyoji noted the stale air is suffocating. Still, he doesn't mention it to avoid being rude. The old lady knocks on the door and a voice from inside invites them in. It turns out her daughter is none other than Yuka. They sit on a sofa in the middle of the room, Kyoji between Akane and Shinta, with Kiika and Aoi on another sofa to the left. Yuka sits across from them. For a while there was an awkward silence in the air until Shinta started asking Kyoji about Yuka, whether he's friends with her. Kyoji outright denied it since he remembered how rude she was during their first meeting, but quickly agreed to it since everyone decided to take Yuka's side because they felt sorry for her. He then asked Yuka why she said those mean things to Akane. With teary-eyed, Yuka explained she was jealous and she only said that as a prank. But after they left, she realized that she was wrong and she apologized. Seeing her sincerity, Kyoji accepts her apology. The group spends a little more time with Yuka, getting to know her and having tea, but they can't stay long since they need to return to school. They say their goodbyes and head back. On the way, a suspicious-looking man stops them, asking about the mansion and whether it's occupied. Remember Yamiko's conversation with Kyoji about her childhood friend? That person is this guy right here. He'll appear again further down the storyline, but for now, the group dismiss him as just another suspicious person. Back in the classroom, they find nearly everyone has returned except Sadashima and his gang, which isn't surprising given his behavior. What is surprising is how confused everyone looks. Their teacher stands motionless, hands gripping the desk. As the group wonders what's wrong, the door opens and suddenly the teacher's body bends in an unnatural position. He falls forward, convulsing violently. Seconds later, he speaks in a strange, puppet-like manner, demanding the student to hand over the map they made before walking up the class awkwardly as if he was controlled. But as weird as that sounds, nothing can prepare them for what happens the next day. The next morning, as Kyoji enters the classroom, he bumps into Akane, who stands there with a shocked look on her face. Her eyes fix on the blackboard. Kyoji follows her gaze and is horrified to see a crude drawing of himself and Akane having sex. This is the last thing he wants to see. Looking around, he spots Sadashima and his gang laughing at the situation. Putting two and two together, Kyoji concludes Sadashima is responsible for this cruel joke. He storms towards them and throws a punch, but Sadashima dodges and mocks their trauma. At this point, Kyoji had enough. He raised his fist again to hit him, but just as he was about to do that, he hears a loud slap followed by another one. Sadashima reels away, but Akane was quicker and ended the whole thing by kicking him in the crotch. Sadashima's gang tries to help, but Akane threatened to hit them the same way. Scared, they took their leader away. After the scuffle, everyone works together to erase the blackboard drawing. Akane reveals that everyone already knows about their past incident and she admits she was bullied a lot because of it. However, she reassured Kyoji that everything's fine now since she didn't give up and fought back. Over time, people stopped bullying her to avoid getting hurt. Akane also realized Sadashima isn't the nice person she thought he was. After school, both of them heads home together, but on their way, Akane spots Yuka going up Mount Nishimori. She calls her out, but Yuka ignores her. They decide to follow her, leading them to the old well. Akane panics because the well, previously sealed, is now open. Worried that something might have happened to Yuka since she saw her go inside, they descend the well to rescue her. Thankfully, the bottom of the well is spacious and dry, though a bit dark. Kyoji turns on the flashlight he got from Shinta and shines it around. As soon as the light hits the wall, they freeze in fear. Scroll on the walls in blood are ominous writings. Terrified, Kyoji and Akane quicken their pace to search for Yuka. After walking for a while, Kyoji spots a metallic door. As soon as they enter, they see Yuka standing in the middle of the room welcoming them. Akane, relieved to find her safe, asks what she's doing down there, but Yuka ignores her and keeps staring at Kyoji. Tired of her rude attitude, Kyoji tells her to stop ignoring Akane, but Yuka responds by saying she's disappointed in him because he doesn't even remember her. She reveals that she lured them here to trap Akane. Hearing this, Kyoji knows they can't stay, so he grabs Akane's hand and runs for the exit. But as they reach for the door, everything goes dark. Something was covering his vision. When he looks up, he sees a tall creature wearing a black cloak, a clown-like metal mask with a cat-like cat and a horrifying grin. The creature introduces itself as Gore Screaming Show. Gore for short. Kyoji backs away, shielding Akane behind him. He asks what the creature wants and it responds that it only wants to entertain Yuka. Gore waves his hand and two sock puppet appears, resembling Yuka and Akane. It starts mocking Akane's puppet, exposing her hidden desire. Seeing how distressed Akane becomes, Kyoji tries to grab Gore to stop it, but he can't. Whenever he tries, Gore slips away, as if he's an illusion. Gore then changed the Yuka puppet to one resembling Kyoji and reenacts the trauma Kyoji and Akane experienced as kids. Horrified, Kyoji screams as loud as he can while Akane breaks down in tears. As much as Yuka enjoys this, she eventually grows bored and asks Gore to take care of Akane. Gore decides to leave her for now, saying that it's not the right time. As they exit, they seal the well's entrance, trapping Kyoji and Akane inside. With no other choice, the two heads deeper underground. Fortunately, the underground connects to a bunker and luckily the suspicious man they met a few days ago is there. He rescued them and sent them to the hospital for checkup. At the hospital, they learn the identity of the suspicious man. This person is Yoshiki and he's Yamiko's best friend. He asks if they've seen a girl matching his description and despite Kyoji's dislike for him, he reluctantly shares what he knows. Akane also described their experience being locked in the well. After hearing all of this, Yoshiki returns to his car. After a few more medical checkup, the doctor allows them to go home. As soon as they reach home, Kyoji heads to his room, exhausted and unwilling to see anyone. But soon after, he hears a knock on the door. It's Yoshiki who has something for him. Reluctantly, Kyoji lets him in. Without wasting time, Yoshiki asks if Yuka's full name is Yukari. Kyoji denies that, saying her name is just Yuka. Yoshiki then asks if there's anything else that Kyoji hasn't told him yet. Kyoji immediately mentioned the strange figure he saw in the mansion. After hearing this, Yoshiki leaves abruptly, but not before advising Kyoji to stay home no matter what. A solid advice, but Kyoji isn't the type to listen, something he'll deeply regret later on. While walking home in the pouring rain, the two stumble upon Yoshiki, who is badly injured from his fight with Gore and Yuka. Here we learn that Yoshiki was searching for Yuka because she's the reason his wife Sayumi died. During the battle, both parties were injured. Gore managed to attack Yoshiki and bend his arm, while Yoshiki was able to shoot Yuka point blank in the face. The gunshot was loud enough that Kyoji and Akane, who happens to be nearby, heard it. The two then fixed his injured arm. Yoshiki thanked them and warned them to stay away from Yuka before leaving to search for her. The next day during PE class, Akane spots Yuka and Gore. Remembering what happened in the well, Akane trembles in fear. She tells Kyoji what she saw and he wastes no time going after them, only to be ambushed by Gore, who appeared from behind. Yuka then appears out of nowhere and tells Kyoji that she's there to see him. However, Kyoji demands that she stop messing with them and warns her that if she ever hurts Akane, he will do something about it. It's a bad move from Kyoji because as soon as Yuka hears Akane's name, her demeanor changes and she immediately leaves. After they leave, the heavy air returns to normal. Kyoji breathes a sigh of relief, but something about Yuka's demeanor bothered him. Her expression is different from usual. Well, it won't be long before Kyoji finds out why. It begins with Akane finding out about Kyoji's plan to return to Yuka's mansion to look for Yoshiki. Knowing it will be dangerous, she decides to tag along. However, Kyoji doesn't want to put her in danger, so he agrees to let her join for now and decides to properly check the place later. The next day, as soon as class ends, Kyoji immediately runs to the mansion. His goal is simple: find Yoshiki, explore the mansion, and uncover the truth about Yuka. But little does he know, Yuka is already anticipating his arrival. And to make matters worse, Akane secretly follows him. Yuka then invited them for dinner, and this is where Kyoji discovers the horrifying truth. While waiting for the food, Kyoji kept asking Yuka about Yoshiki's whereabouts and whether he came there. As he feared, Yuka confirmed that he did. When Kyoji demands to know where he is, Momone appeared with Gore holding a tray of food. As soon as she lifts the lid, Akane lets out a terrified scream. On the plate is a severed arm belonging to none other than Yoshiki. Horrified, Kyoji immediately grabs Akane and leaves. He plans to go to the police station to get Yuka arrested since she has just killed someone, and the severed arm will be the proof that he needs. But when they open the door, a bright light engulfs them and suddenly they're back in the mansion. Only it looks different. The hallway seems never ending, and not only that, the air feels heavier and suffocating. They try every room but none led to the exit. In fact, as they move through the hallway, the atmosphere grows even heavier and eyeballs starts appearing, watching their every move. The two are desperate to find the exit, but no matter where they go, it kept bringing them back to where they started. Just as they're losing hope, Kyoji accidentally dropped Yoshiki's severed arm, and in that brief moment, the hand touches the floor. The place reverts to normal. They realize that whatever illusion Yuka cast on them is finally gone, allowing them to escape. But just as they're about to leave, they hear Yuka's voice from behind, instructing Gore to capture Akane. In an instant, Gore appears behind her and captures her. Kyoji tries to grab Gore, but just like before, he can't. The two disappear, leaving Kyoji behind. Not knowing what to do, Kyoji frantically runs through the mansion, only to find Yoshiki sitting with his back against the wall. For a moment, Kyoji is relieved to see him, but then his face turns to pure horror. Looking closely, he sees Yoshiki's severed arm had already turned purple, a clear sign that Yoshiki will not make it. In his dying breath, Yoshiki tells Kyoji about the pendant and its uses, then instructs him to leave because he plans to destroy the mansion. Kyoji asks for more time and explains that Akane was kidnapped by Gore. Reluctantly, Yoshiki spares him a few minutes to find her. With little time left, Kyoji frantically searches for Akane, calling her name until he circles back to the entrance, where he sees Momone charging towards Yuka with a knife in an attempt to kill her. While she does manage to stab her, Momone dies due to being impaled in the head with a broken glass. The scene then shifts to Yoshiki, who's on the verge of death. He has given Kyoji enough time, but there's still no sign of him exiting with Akane. His time is running out, and with no choice left, he reached for the detonation button. But as he's about to press it, Akane appeared in front of him with Gore. Shocked by what he saw, Yoshiki used his remaining strength to press the button, destroying Yuka's mansion. Luckily, Kyoji survived the blast. When he wakes up, he finds himself outside of the burning mansion. He immediately searches for Akane and finds her lying next to the debris with one shoe missing. Kyoji quickly carries her down the mountain while avoiding people rushing towards the ruined mansion. Happy ending, right? Well, not exactly. You see, this is where things starts to go downhill. After saving Akane from the explosion, something about her changed. She started letting her hair down and speaks in a soft-spoken and seductive manner. Unlike her previous tsundere attitude, the Akane that we're seeing right now looks more mature. And that's because this is not Akane. This is Yuka possessing her body. Now, Yuka is oddly obsessed with Kyoji, so she decides to take over Akane's body and start messing with him. The worst part is, he doesn't realize it. It starts with her suddenly appearing at his home when Yamiko is out. Kyoji tries asking what's wrong, but Akane just ignores him and starts flirting with him. Kyoji, who doesn't realize that Yuka has taken over, thinks it's Akane's way of wanting to advance their relationship. So both of them got together and start making love. The next day, Akane appears in a much more revealing outfit. She doesn't wear her blazer and the top two buttons on her uniform are left open, revealing her chest. When Yamiko sees this, she immediately tells her that her appearance is not appropriate. But instead of listening, Akane got mad at her and runs out. Now you would think that Kyoji would realize it by now. And thankfully he does, because he demands to know why she acted like that. Akane explains that she loves him and only wants his attention. Here Kyoji realizes that something's wrong with Akane. But before he can confront her, Yuka puts out a brainwashing fragrance. When Kyoji smells it, he has a minor headache, but afterward he starts accepting anything Akane asks him. Now, this is where things gets infuriating for me. Akane wants to skip school with Kyoji and make love with him. Two choices appear. The first one, if he accepts it, they'll do it at the school, but the second choice denies her request. If for some reason you decide to be the good guy here and rejects her advance, it will lead to one of the most heartbreaking, disgusting and infuriating ending ever. And I, unfortunately, chose the second option, since I thought it would somehow make Kyoji realize that he's not talking to Akane. Well, you know what they say, you reap what you sow, because what happened after this made me so mad that I couldn't continue this game for a few days. After Kyoji rejects Akane, she threatened to use her body and have fun with other people. Who does she decide to do it with? It's none other than the horse-faced Sadashima. Holy shit, was I mad as fuck. Sadashima, the guy that we beat at the start of the game because he's a scumbag and only wants Akane's body. We thought we won, but no. Akane decided it's a good idea to have fun with him and moan like a total slut. This is the worst ending, mainly because I've grown attached to Akane in this route. She's your typical tsundere who loves her childhood friend and actually wins him in the end, but this bad end single-handedly destroys that. It's like watching your favorite character who you spend a lot of time buffing, giving them the best item ever, only for them to die a needless death. That's how it felt. The writers did well in making the reader feel like that. Thankfully, this ending is not canon to her route, so going back to the choices, this time Kyoji accepts her offer and make love with her at school. After they're done, they return to class and Kyoji falls asleep due to exhaustion. When he wakes up, he finds out that class is still in session but Akane is nowhere to be found. He immediately rushed out and heads straight to Yuka's mansion where Yuka greeted him as if she knew he was coming. A bright light engulfs them and Kyoji finds himself transported to her mansion. For some reason, Akane and Yuka are getting along just fine. The scene then shifts to Yuka and Gore attending school. The teacher, Mr. Ando, introduced her to the whole class and then out of nowhere, Yuka instructs Gore to kill Mr. Ando. The worst thing about this scene is that we can hear the distinct sound of Gore munching on Mr. Ando's body. Kinda grotesque if you ask me. After that, Gore takes over and starts giving lessons to the classroom. The scene shifts multiple times as Yuka and Gore attempt to brainwash Kyoji into thinking that Yuka is someone important to him. They almost succeed until Kyoji remembers a book that he wrote with Akane back in elementary school. This somehow jolts his memory and he realizes that the Akane in front of him is not who he thinks it is. Kyoji remembers more and one particular piece of information about the pendant comes up. He realizes that the pendant is the key to fighting Yuka. Remembering the pendant is still inside his drawer, Kyoji runs back to his home and immediately finds it. However, Gore appears and tries to stop him. Kyoji then shoves the pendant towards him and surprisingly he stopped moving. Akane appears not long after and tries to sweet talk him, promising him great pleasure, but Kyoji already realized who it is and demands Yuka leave Akane's body. Suddenly, her demeanor changes. She then gives him a choice, accept her or let Akane die. Now accepting her would be the right choice here, but letting her die is the right one here, because by choosing that option, Kyoji also tells Yuka that if anything happens to Akane, he would end his life since the only person that he loved is Akane herself, and if she's not there then there's no reason for him to stay in that world. When Yuka hears what he says, she immediately leaves Akane's body. Heartbroken, Yuka leaves with Gore. As they slowly disappear, they can hear something shattered and the world around them changes. The ground starts to shake, the landscape turns bloody red and eyeballs fills the sky. Kyoji grabs Akane and runs frantically trying to avoid the splitting ground, but no matter where they go, they can't see a way out. Finally, out of desperation, Kyoji throws the pendant towards Gore and a bright light engulfs them. The next thing they know, both of them are back in their world, lying in a plain of field where the mansion once stood. The game then ends with Akane making love with Kyoji and going on a date with him. She also apologized for her behavior towards Yamiko. Kyoji, on the other hand, appreciates life a bit more and promised to cherish it with Akane by his side until the day he died. Let's turn back the clock and return to the moment when we're given the dialogue option to choose a route. One thing to note is that the base story progressed the same way as the first route, except for the romance because each route is different. Right now, we're on Namiki Aoi's route. At first, when you're introduced to her, she's the typical quiet girl, but as we progress, Kyoji learns a lot about Aoi and gradually falls in love with her. Everything about her is perfect for him, but this route doesn't just show the romance between Aoi and Kyoji, it also reveals that Aoi was Kyoji and Akane's schoolmate back in elementary school. Aoi was always the quiet one, so Akane often spoke up for her. But what she didn't realize was that Aoi secretly harbored intense hatred towards Akane because of her bubbly personality. She really hated how outspoken Akane was. When Aoi started falling in love with Kyoji, Akane became her biggest obstacle. So when she overheard that Sarashima wanted to date Akane just for her body, she didn't inform Kyoji, something Aoi would regret much later. This also led to one of the bad endings where it briefly showed Akane being taken to Sarashima's house and was violated by him and his gang. This is also the only route where Yuka's word makes sense. As we saw in Akane's route, Yuka has an uncanny ability to see the person's true self, and with Aoi, she sees nothing but envy, jealousy, and manipulation. But despite these negative thoughts, when Aoi hears that Sarashima violated Akane on the day of their date, she's horrified and immediately confessed to Kyoji that she is responsible for what happened. This is where the game takes a dark turn. While walking home in the rain, the two stumble upon Yuka, who offers to let them stay in her mansion until the rain stops. Prior to this, Kyoji met Yoshiki, who warned him to not get too close to Yuka because she's dangerous. But since Kyoji doesn't like Yoshiki, this idiot decides to ignore that warning and follows Yuka inside. As soon as they enter, Yuka gives them clothes styled like Alice in Wonderland, and the two are given some time alone. As expected, Kyoji and Aoi start making love, enjoying their time. After they're done, Gore appears and introduces himself. He then pulls out two sock puppets and begins exposing Aoi's deepest, darkest secret. But Kyoji doesn't plan on listening to it because he's worried about their safety. Ignoring Gore, they run towards the entrance, but instead of seeing the outside world, Kyoji sees a room filled with mirrors that reflects a person's desire. Gore appeared again, and here we learn the truth about what happened that day. Apparently, Aoi witnessed everything that happened, but instead of calling for help, she was happy that Akane was being violated. Realizing her shameful secret is being exposed, Aoi takes the hand mirror given to her by Gore and goes inside it. At this point, two things can happen. If you're on track for the bad ending, you'll see what happened to Aoi after she enters the mirror. In that ending, we see Aoi wandering through the empty street of Kurehito. Suddenly, she hears Akane's voice in an alleyway. When she looks, she sees Sarashima doing something to her. Aoi gets pulled in by them and is brutally violated until her innards explode. If you're not on the bad ending route, you get a brief scene of Akane being taken to Sarashima's house and given sleeping pills. When she wakes up, Sarashima almost violates her, but she managed to fight him off and escapes. The scene then cuts to Yoshiki appearing at the mansion, where we learn that Momone was actually Yuka's little sister. Now it finally makes sense why Yoshiki called Yuka a woman instead of a little girl. Given how old Momone looked, it's safe to say Yuka is even older. After that, Yoshiki and Yuka have a brief confrontation that ends with Yuka being shot in the head. Not taking any chances, Yoshiki pressed the detonation button, destroying Yuka's mansion. We then see Kyoji exiting the burning mansion, similar to Akane's route, except this time Yoshiki is with him. They then go home thinking everything is over, but unknown to them, Yuka survived. The next day, Yoshiki gives the pendant to Yamiko for her protection. Kyoji thinks nothing of it because he assumed the threat is over. But on his way to school, things get weird. As he passes Aoi's house, he sees a funeral held by her family. One of them invites him to pay his respect, but when he enters, Kyoji notices the family's appearance looks strange. Their hair is disheveled, their lips dried and cracked, and their eyes lifeless and sunken. It's almost as if their life force was drained from their body. Moments later, a woman who was previously quiet starts talking to another woman nearby, bad-mouthing Aoi, calling her a cursed child, and blaming her mother for her death. When Kyoji hears this, anger fills him, but to his surprise, the monk ignores the remark and proceeds normally. When it's time to view the body one last time, Kyoji gets the surprise of a lifetime. Inside the coffin is a teddy bear, the same one he gave her. It should have been weird, yet the people around him treat it as if it's normal. To make things weirder, his classmate Akane and Kiika are there, treating the teddy bear as if it's a real body. As Kyoji wonders what's happening, a bright light suddenly fills the room. When he looks outside, he sees a large pillar of light shooting through the house's roof into the sky. As the light appears, everyone starts behaving weird. This is all too much for him and he runs out of the house, making his way to the school. Thankfully, everything seems normal there, or so he thought. As class begins, the surrounding area turns red. Eyeballs appears in the skies. Kyoji is horrified by this view, but the others remain calm. When the teacher enters, Kyoji is speechless. The teacher moves like it's been controlled by someone, like a puppet. Even more surprising is that one of his classmates, Kiika, who is usually soft-spoken, starts being loud, and then out of nowhere, her head slowly splits apart, and blood gushes out from it. Kyoji has had enough of this and runs away. As he was running, he hears Yuka's voice faintly saying she won't let him go. He reached the front gate where luckily Yoshiki is waiting for him. They discover the whole town has been turned into a mindless puppet, only moving when they see Kyoji and Yoshiki. As they thought of a way to stop this, Yoshiki remembers the pendant he gave to Yamiko, which previously stopped Gore and Yuka. The problem is that the pendant is with her and she has gone out of town. Still, they tried their luck and sent her a message with the location on where to leave the pendant. Thankfully, Yamiko got their message and left the pendant exactly where Yoshiki instructs her to. After obtaining the pendant, they head to the mansion to settle things with Yuka and save Aoi, but on their way, something tragic happened. Gore suddenly appears in front of the car, causing them to crash. Kyoji survives, but Yoshiki died. Taking advantage of the situation, Yuka decides it's a good time to seduce Kyoji. She thinks she has won him, but unexpectedly, Aoi emerged from the broken mirror which landed just outside of the driver's door. With her arms stretched out from the mirror, she opens the door and Yoshiki's severed arm drops to the ground. In an instant, the area is filled with bright light and Aoi is freed from the mirror world. The two embrace, with Aoi promising never to run away again from her problem. Seeing their passionate love makes Yuka angry. The ground shakes violently and moments later they find themselves trapped inside Yuka's mansion. Luckily, Aoi knows the mansion layout and can navigate through it easily. As they make their way to the exit, Yuka and Gore catches up to them. A fight ensues between Gore and Kyoji, with Gore injuring Aoi. However, Kyoji fights back by shoving the pendant towards Gore, incapacitating him and injuring Yuka as well. Without wasting time, Kyoji plunged a mirror shard along with the pendant into Yuka, killing her once and for all. At the end of this route, the people of Kurihito slowly recover and the incident was regarded as nothing but a bad dream. Aoi finally reveals to Akane her true feelings and the game ended with Aoi and Kyoji making passionate love to each other. So now we're starting Misono Kiika's route. She was Kyoji's classmate when he lives in Tokyo before moving back to his hometown. She's the typical honor student who excels in everything, but apparently that's not what it looks like. One thing that confuses me at first was what Yuka said about her dark secret. For Akane and Aoi, you can somewhat tell what secret they're hiding and what their trauma is. But for Kiika, it's a mystery. I mean, what does Yuka meant by her liking iron bars? Does she enjoy being hit by them? Does her mother hit her with that thing? It was confusing at first, until they arrive at the park. As soon as we see her blushing while playing with the iron bar, you can guess what her trauma is. Without diving deep, Kiika's route explores lust, pleasure, and guilt. And this is shown when the scene with her mother comes up. Throughout her life, her mother controlled her every movement, to the point where she's not even allowed to do things on her own. Kiika's mother sets a lot of restriction on her day-to-day life and expects perfection from her. This happened because she is afraid. She is afraid her husband will leave her, so she tries to make Kiika the perfect child by imposing a lot of restriction on her. But you know how this goes. The more you restrict, the more curious they get. One day when Kiika discovers self-pleasure, it doesn't go well. She tells her mother about it, and since Kiika wasn't educated on stuff like that, her mother outright shames her for learning it. This leaves a deep scar on her, and ever since then, Kiika is afraid of her and even develop a self-deprecating attitude. This makes it easy for Yuka and Gore to manipulate her. By taking advantage of her vulnerability, they slowly corrupt her, gaslighting her into thinking that it's all her fault. Even telling her the doppelganger she saw doing all those obscene things is the result of her action, when in actuality, Yuka and Gore are responsible for that. But it doesn't stop there. Each night, they torment Kiika with dreams of her being assaulted by tentacle-like creature. Coupled with the stress from her mother, this mentally destroys her. Slowly, but surely. Luckily, Kyoji noticed the change and temporarily shelters her. With the pendant nearby all the time, Kiika's life slowly returns to normal. However, she makes one big mistake, returning home, not knowing Gore and Yuka are waiting for that exact moment. This event led to one of the first bad endings in her route. When Kiika arrives home, she notices her mother is acting strange. It turns out Gore has managed to control her and turned her into a mindless puppet. Kiika is captured and brought to Yuka's mansion. That evening, when Kiika doesn't return home, Kyoji fears something terrible has happened to her. Yoshiki deduces that Yuka might have taken her, and the two immediately go to her mansion. When they arrive, Yuka greets them with Gore carrying Kiika. We learn here that Yuka did all those horrible things to Kiika because she looks a lot like Yoshiki's late wife Sayumi. Yuka harbored intense hatred towards her, which is why she killed Sayumi in the most brutal way possible. This is why Yoshiki became obsessed with revenge and wants to kill Yuka. After this, the two engage in a fight with Yoshiki managing to temporarily immobilize Gore and save Kiika. This gives him enough time to escape the mansion, however Yuka is one step ahead. After they escape, they find Kiika's mother who is in a daze because of the mind control she experienced earlier. Yoshiki noticed that she is holding a rifle and immediately suspects that she is still being mind controlled. He tries to give the pendant to Kiika, but before he can do that, a gunshot is heard and the screen fades to black. We then see Kyoji chained to a wall, Kiika strapped to a table, and her mother operating a lever not too far from her. A device is then inserted into her crotch and her stomach slowly expands. It kept going until it exploded with guts flying all over the place. Seeing her die right in front of him, Kyoji snaps. He breaks the chain, grabs a wooden stick nearby, and beat the living shit out of Kiika's mother. The scene then fades with the sound of Kyoji beating her to death. At the end of this bad ending route, we see an adult Kyoji arriving at an abandoned factory. Obsessed with revenge, he chased after Yuka just like Yoshiki did. A pretty depressing ending, but thankfully this is not how it's supposed to end. Reminding back to the moment when Kyoji and his group discover Yuka's mansion and decide whether to go in or not. If Kyoji decides to check the mansion, things plays out similarly to the bad ending, except this time Kiika isn't abducted by Yuka. You see, the reason we go through that ending in the first place was because Kyoji refused to go inside Yuka's mansion. But if he accepts, Yuka will meet the other and has to fake her reaction when Kyoji confronts her about why she was rude to Kiika when they first met. Things then play out similarly to the bad ending, but this time Kyoji gets to go on a date with Kiika, which ends early because of a sudden rain. Conveniently, the rain happened just close to Yuka's mansion. As they take shelter, Yuka suddenly appeared and offered Kyoji a place to stay. Not Kiika, but only Kyoji. She then pushed Kiika down, which would have killed her since they were standing next to a flight of stairs if it wasn't for Yoshiki, who appears and saves her just in the nick of time. He then shoots Yuka and escapes with both of them. The route then continues similarly to Kiika's bad ending, but instead of being unable to leave the mansion, Kyoji managed to escape with Kiika. However, her torment doesn't stop there. Kiika develops a serious problem where she's unable to control her lust. This later becomes an issue when her classmate discovers this. Yuka then takes advantage of this by controlling Sarashima and planning to use him by violating Kiika in front of Kyoji to break him down. However, Kyoji won't allow that to happen. Using the pendant, he managed to incapacitate Gore and used this opportunity to take Kiika away and hides in the astronomy room. Yuka, not wanting to let them escape, traps both of them in her nightmarish world. She then sends Sarashima, who managed to find them instantly. Upon seeing him, Kyoji froze in fear. Sarashima, who appears normal before, now had a grotesque appearance. His face looks like it melted and his eyes bulge out. And honestly, it looks like he's wearing a mask. Yuka then appear and explain that this happened because Sarashima raped her multiple times to the point where half of his soul belongs in there. She then tries one more time to persuade Kyoji to stay with her, but Kyoji refuses. Enraged, Yuka pulls out a lighter and burns Sarashima. The sound of his scream echoes throughout the room as the fire spread, trapping them inside. It seems like this is the end. With their way out now blocked and smokes filling the room, it was only a matter of time before they suffocate. But then Kyoji remembered that he still had the pendant. He put it against the window and instantly it shattered, revealing the real world. The two then jumps out of the window and safely returns to the real world. At the end of this route, we learned that Sarashima's death was ruled as an accident. Though Kiika was suspected at first, she was released due to the lack of evidence. Kiika also decided to go to England and the two promise to be together once they finish high school. The scene then ends with a time skip where we see an adult Kyoji arriving in England and reuniting with Kiika. So now we're finally on to Yamiko's route. This route pretty much explains a lot of things that happened in the previous three routes, specifically why Yuka became evil and wanted to torment the three girls. Although this is technically Yamiko's route, there's much more about Yuka than Yamiko herself. Also, this is the only route where there's no bad ending. In this route, we learn about Yamiko's childhood and also the reason why she quit her job. Remember earlier in the video when I said that Yamiko used to work for a very reputable publishing company? Well, we learn here that the reason she quit was because she dated her boss and found out that he cheated on her. So she decided to break up with him and went over to their rival company, Abrase. Honestly, that's pretty anticlimactic. I thought she quit because of a bigger reason, but nope. So that's about it for her job. Now it's time for her backstory. We learn here that when she was a kid, Yamiko befriended Yuka, Momone, and Sayumi. Now you might wonder, if she's a childhood friend, then how come Yuka never harmed her? Well, as it turns out, Yamiko was a bit of a tomboy back then, and Yuka mistook her for a guy. We learned that Momone resented her older sister Yuka, so she decided to play a prank on her. She told Yamiko to not use her real name and just go by the name Hikun. It was harmless at first, but the prank escalated to the point where it would harm Yuka. Long story short, Momone trapped Yuka inside an old well, the same well that Kyoji went down with Akane. Filled with resentment, Yuka vowed to kill the people that trapped her there. This is also the time where she met Gore and she was cured of her sickness. There's more to this, but I'll save that for later. Anyway, this route also introduced the woman we've seen at the beginning of the game. Her name is Mashiro and she's someone who knew how to use the pendant. Mashiro claimed to have lived since World War I. To prove what she said was true, she recalled the event that happened to her husband and the war that happened at that time. She also remembered being invited into a cult, and shortly after that, Mashiro gained immortality. After getting all the information from Mashiro, Yamiko excused herself, but before leaving, Mashiro told them to seek the stone, as it's the only thing that can strip it all away. The stone that she mentioned is none other than the one in Yoshi's possession, and it's a key item that will be important in defeating Yuka. After this, thing plays out similarly to the previous route, but this time we get an extra scene of Yuka asking Kyoji about the bracelet in her possession. Kyoji replied by saying he didn't remember, and this made Yuka sad. Things then proceed normally like in the previous route, but with an added scene. This time, Yoshiki appeared at his school and confronted Yuka. He then fired a few shots at Yuka to prove to Kyoji that she was not human. This didn't do anything though, as Yuka immediately healed herself and took Kyoji hostage. Yoshiki tried to save him but was shot instead. The police, under Yuka's control, disposed of his body and then resumed things normally. Kyoji couldn't believe what he had just seen. He was so shocked that it took him a while to process what happened, and when he came back home, he immediately broke the news to Yamiko that Yoshiki was dead and broke down crying. It took them a while to accept his death, with Yamiko regretting not picking up the last call from Yoshiki earlier. It was also revealed here that Yoshiki left the pendant to Yamiko. Sensing that Yamiko might be in danger, he left the pendant to protect her. After calming down, Yamiko inspected the pendant and realized that the man who took Mashiro's stone was none other than Yoshiki himself. Realizing they now had the key to defeat Yuka, Yamiko took Kyoji on a trip to her hometown where she, Sayumi, and Yoshiki grew up. Here, Kyoji learned that Yamiko had feelings for both Yoshiki and Sayumi. Also, this is the first time we, as player, get to see Kyoji's face. He bears an uncanny resemblance to Yamiko when she was a kid. After Yamiko reminisced about her memory, she then invited Kyoji to a hotel where Yamiko asked to be comforted by Kyoji. Kyoji understood what she meant by this, and both of them got together. The next day, they returned home and Yamiko decided to go to Kyoji's school to meet with Yuka. Kyoji was obviously against this but relented since Yamiko insisted on going. As they were nearing the school, something weird happened. First off, the scenery changed. The blue skies turned red, with eyeballs appearing in the sky. Kyoji's classmate could be seen greeting them at the entrance of the school as they arrived. Yamiko then asked them to call for Yuka, but when she didn't get a response, she told them about Hikun. This got Yuka's attention and she immediately appeared. She demanded to know how Yamiko knew Hikun, which she confessed to her by telling her that Hikun was her all along. This made Yuka angry and she commanded Gore to kill her. But Yamiko came prepared. She used the stone left by Yoshiki and shoved it towards Gore. This incapacitated him. When Kyoji asked what she did, Yamiko told him that she just wished on it and he granted her wish. Finally, after going through 3 routes which took 5 to 6 hours, we finally got an answer on what the stone can actually do. Up until this point, we didn't even know what the stone was capable of. The only thing we knew was that it was able to hurt Gore and Yuka. Anyway, after seeing Gore powerless against Yamiko, Yuka commanded him to run away, but Yamiko and Kyoji were not going to let them escape. The two then chased after them where they entered the Pillar of Light. The next thing they knew, they were transported down the well. Having nowhere else to escape, Yuka tried attacking Yamiko by wrapping her in some sort of tentacle-like attack, but instead of running away, Yamiko embraced her and asked for her forgiveness. She then used the stone to remove Yuka's power, stopping her once and for all. At the end of this route, we see Yuka waking up a week later in the hospital, having no memories of what she did. She vaguely remembers Gore, but not as a creature that kills people, but rather a puppet who tells her funny stories. Kyoji's classmates also recover, having no memories of the incident. However, not everything is good news. Yoshiki's burnt body was found inside the school incinerator. His funeral was held not long after that and he was laid to rest next to Sayumi. Sometimes after all of this, Yamiko broke the news to Kyoji that she would be leaving for Germany. Maybe it's because of her guilt, but this didn't stop Kyoji from confessing his love to her. They shared an intimate kiss and Kyoji promised her that in 5 years' time he would come back to find her. The route ended with Yamiko boarding an airplane, excitedly looking forward to meeting Kyoji once again. After finishing Yamiko's route, we unlock Yuka's route, or as I would like to call it, the true ending route. This route will explain Yuka's strange obsession with Kyoji. In this route as well, some dialogue option will offer a fourth option, so you really can't miss or diverge away from her route. Other than that, things progress normally with the exception of scene where Kyoji slowly falls in love with Yuka. Now, throughout Gore Screaming Show, one thing that never changed throughout all of the routes was Yuka's affection towards Kyoji. There was a mystery in the first 3 routes why she was so obsessed with him, and in Yamiko's route, we're led to believe that she was obsessed with him because she mistook him for Hikun. I mean, they even show us what he looked like on that route, so of course players are gonna assume she mistook him for Hikun. Well, that's not the case. Apparently, Yuka and Kyoji had already met years ago. It was shown in this route whenever Kyoji had a minor headache, we would see snippets of dialogue between him and a girl named Yukari. In Yamiko's route, we learned that Yuka's full name is Yukari, so this is definitely her. As we progress, more and more memories were unlocked, where eventually we learned the sad truth. Long story short, Kyoji met Yuka when he was still a child. During a festival, Kyoji got lost and ended up at a shrine near Yuka's place. When Yuka found him, she wasn't happy to see someone trespassing into her place at first, but Kyoji's sincerity and him not being afraid of her sparked her interest in him. They spent the whole evening together and the two of them gradually become friends. At one point, Kyoji even gave her a bracelet, the same one that she showed to Kyoji in the previous route. This is the reason why she's obsessed with him. That single act of kindness saved her. Now, since this is the true ending of the game, we need to talk about the bad ending of this route. The bad ending of this route is literally Gore killing all the girls after violating them. But there's a plot twist. At the end of this route, it was revealed that Kyoji had turned into Gore. So that means Kyoji was the one doing all the killing. But how? Well, let me explain. Gore's appearance is tied to Yuka. When Kyoji first met her years ago, Gore didn't have any form. For reference, this is what he looks like back then. This should have scared anybody, yet Kyoji didn't even flinch. This is why Yuka was surprised and asked Kyoji why he wasn't afraid of Gore. One thing you should remember about Kyoji is that ever since he was a kid, he loved villain type characters. He even collected figures of creepy monster villain. That's how much he loved them. So when he saw Gore, Kyoji didn't find him scary, but rather he was amazed by him. So since Yuka never had anyone who was this nice to her, she immediately fell in love with him. And Gore took on the appearance of Kyoji. This is why when we see Gore for the first time, he has Kyoji's hair color, and so it makes sense why in this route, in the bad ending, Kyoji becomes Gore. At the end of this route, Yuka returns to her adult form after Yoshiki used the stone on her. It should have killed her like in the previous route, but because Kyoji became her lover in this route, Yuka was able to move on and let go of her hatred. She was even able to reconcile with Yamiko. Gore became a doll, and finally, after all of this, Yuka decided to move away from Kurehito. But this wouldn't stop Yoshiki from going after her since he still intends to kill her, which Yuka is fine with, but only if he's able to catch her. This might sound disturbing, but at this point, Yuka had accepted that outcome since she realized what she did to Sayumi was terrible. If her death could ease him, then she would gladly accept it. However, Kyoji won't allow any of that. He won't allow the woman he loved to be killed easily. He promised Yuka that no matter where she is, he would find her. The game then ends with Yuka disappearing into the mist, Kyoji vowing to spend his entire life to find her, and in the end, it shows an adult Yuka on a field of flowers. So what exactly happened in Gore Screaming Show? With a total of 15 different endings, some of you might have lost the story at some point. Well, to understand all of this, we must go back to the 13th century. During that time, a major earthquake happened in Kurehito and the villagers discovered a cave. When the villagers explored the cave, they found an altar inside. They didn't know what to do with it, so they decided to worship the altar. However, people that went into the cave to give an offering started disappearing. Soon enough, the cave became known as a place where people get spirited away, and the altar that was once a sacred site became a cursed place and should be avoided at all costs. But this still didn't stop the disappearings, so the villagers decided to seal the place. Things were peaceful for a few years until one day, disaster struck. On that rainy day, the villagers saw a strange pillar of light appearing on Mount Nishimori. The day after that incident, a woman spotted a man on her way back from the field. She tried to ignore him at first, but after seeing what is next to him, her blood ran cold. Next to the man were piles of half-eaten human bodies. The man soon died after that, but before that, he managed to regain his sanity and told the villagers that the pillars of light were gateways to another world. Fast forward a few hundred years later, a woman named Mashiro was invited into a cult. The cult's goal was to open the door to the new empire. Remember the guy who regained his sanity and said the pillar of light were a gateway to another world? Well, that's what the cult was trying to do. They had a massive orgy, and then after that, half of them were sacrificed. Mashiro was one of the lucky ones who managed to get a glimpse inside the pillar of light. She described the place filled with eyeballs and red skies, the same one that we've seen when Yuka uses her power. But that didn't last long though, as Mashiro went insane. It was at this moment that she obtained two stones. One entered her body and the other one was in her possession. A few years after that, Yuka and her family moved to Kurohito and settled near Mount Nishimori. Yuka had always been a frail girl, so her parents decided to move to the countryside where the air is much cleaner. Problem is, her little sister Momone didn't like any of that. She hated Yuka because of her sickness, which forced her to leave her friends since they had to move to a different place. Around this time, Momone became friends with Himiko and Sayumi and had an idea to play a prank on Yuka. She noticed that Himiko looked a lot like a boy, so she had her pretend to be one. This worked on Yuka, who had never seen a boy in her entire life, so immediately she was infatuated with Himiko. The prank was harmless at first, but gradually it became dangerous. One day, Momone trapped Yuka down the well and purposely forgot to let her out. Here's where things get disturbing. Down the well, Yuka wandered around until she found a hidden room. This room is the same one where the cult did their dirty work. Here, she found a gemstone which entered her body. As she was struggling to get it off, blood dripped down from, down there. Blood dripped, but it didn't stop. It kept flowing and even went up to the wall where it formed words. Words cursing the people that hurt her, that put her in the situation. This is the same one we've seen scribble at the start of Akane's route when they were trapped down here. It was also here that Yuka started seeing Gore. Gore is a creature from the other dimension and he will do anything for Yuka. This is why the only way to hurt Gore was by using the stone from Mashiro, as it came from the same place as him. After some time, Momone finally remembered Yuka and decided to let her out, but when she came out, Yuka changed. She was colder and lost all of her emotion. With Gore's help, Yuka killed off her parents and made Momone her servant. Just like Mashiro, Yuka gained immortality and stayed in a childlike appearance for a few years up until her meeting with Kyoji. This encounter ended up being her salvation down the line, and years later, she would be saved by Kyoji's kindness. After losing her immortality, Yuka traveled all over the place to avoid Yoshiki and won't stop until the day she reunited with Kyoji once again. Thank you guys so much for watching. This game took me nearly 2 months to finish because, not gonna lie, it's pretty long. Gore Screaming Show is a good visual novel, but seriously, there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of things that were left to the player's interpretation. I also find it weird how they start showing us some stuff only at the last 2 route. Like, why didn't the game show us the bracelet early on? Why wait until the last 2 route to show it? In all visual novel I play, there's always hints at the early part of the game that connects us to the villain, so that when it's time to do their route, it won't feel weird. But in this game, you spend nearly 5 to 6 hours doing the 3 main heroine route with no hints or any mention that connects Kyoji and Yuka. But when you unlock the last 2 routes, suddenly we were bombarded with new information that connects Kyoji and Yuka. It's weird how it suddenly appeared like that, but maybe that's me. I would really love to know what your thoughts on this game. Again, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed my video, don't forget to subscribe so you get to see more content like this. Like the video so I know that you enjoy this stuff. Become a member to support the channel and get more interesting stuff in the future. That's all for me. See you.